Hi, I'm Gabi Awad, your host for this final episode of season 4 of Buying Customers. Some know me as the coach on wheels because I have a YouTube channel where I coach riding on my motorcycle. Check it out, hit that subscribe button, and click the notification bell. As a business and executive coach, I help business owners, leaders, and teams grow and achieve their goals through business re-education, coaching, speaking, mentoring, even business advisory. My mission is to help businesses and leaders grow. By the way, we would like to hear from you in real time during our show today. If you are listening live or listening to one of the recordings, you can always connect and interact with us on social media or by using the IBGR network. Just download from the iOS store or Android store and search for IBGR, where you can download and listen to current programming, on-demand podcasts, read the show notes, and stay current on IBGR. Take this application with you wherever you go. If this is your first time listening, welcome. And if you are a returning listener, welcome back. If you want to leave me something in the chat box, I'm also sharing this chat overlay. I'm testing it actually, as a matter of fact. So if you want to ask any question, I'm sharing this chat button or overlay that we can interact together. Why not? So in this Buying Customer episode 13, the final episode of season 4, we are going to talk about negotiation in sales. More specifically, we're going to talk about the different negotiation strategies, the 4 phases of negotiation, the skills that you need to equip yourself with, what does BATNA, WATNA, ZOPA, WAP means, and much more. I call this episode Beyond Win-Win. Once we finish our talk today, you should be able to follow an action plan like always to take your negotiation skills to the next level. Make sure you take notes, and when you come to write your first few words, you might need to refer back to this show notes, which again is available for you to download from ibgr.network. Just type ibgr.network in your internet browser and you are there. Why negotiation? Well, everything is a negotiation. Everything is a little bit of positioning, problem solving, and give and take. There is actually 2 types of negotiation. The integrative negotiation, and here opponents, if we can call them as such, cooperate and solve the problem at hand. Both parties believe they can walk away with something without giving up something important, and they are both ready to give concessions on less important issues. In the integrative type of negotiation, both parties concentrate on interests, not on positioning. They are at ease, sharing information, which is, by the way, an essential part of problem solving, and they tend to build bridges. Now, disruptive negotiation, on the other hand, involves a fixed pie. This is only so much to go around, and each party wants a big of a slice as much as possible to get from the other party. As an example would be battling over the price of a car with a car salesman. Relationship or creating a positive impression is not important in this type of negotiation. Also, in this type of negotiation, both parties keep information confidential. For example, you don't want the salesman to know how badly you need this car or how much you are willing to pay for it. Both are trying to extract information from the other party with no one succeeding. Today, we are not talking about integrative or distributive negotiation. Today, we are talking about beyond that, beyond win-win even. Perhaps the most famous negotiation parable involves an argument over an orange. Let me tell you actually about it, and we'll explain the concept of beyond win-win later on. After a hard day working, a father enters his home via the kitchen door, only to find the chairs are overturned and Tupperwares and utensils are knocked to the floor, as his 2 sons wrestling over the last orange in the house. Having ignored their father's warning to stop quarreling, the siblings stop their grappling, and their father snatches the orange from their shared grip. The father pulls out a knife and cut the orange in half. Handing each half, to each sibling, the dad sees both kids are upset with, this compromise. The frustrated father asks, "Go ahead, eat up, and don't give me, crap over whose half is bigger. I don't want to hear about it." It's at this time the younger of the two brothers speak up and says, "It's not that. It's just that I wanted to make some zest for some cupcakes that I'm making for mom's birthday." This is followed by the other brother pointing out, "But I wanted to make some orange juice to serve with her breakfast in bed because it's her birthday. So I'm preparing the orange juice." You see, as Fisher and Urey suggested in chapter 4 of their book, Getting to Yes, too many negotiations end up with half an orange for each side instead of the whole fruit for one and the whole peel for the other. Why? My answer is that quite often we overlook a valuable collaboration when we settle for compromises. Put another way, a win-win solution could have been enjoyed had any of the three individuals in the story, the dad and the brothers, had simply asked something along the lines of, "Why is the orange so important to you? And why is the orange so important to you?" This question is in the core of interest-based negotiation. So we're seeking interests here and not positions. Cutting the orange in half is positional negotiation. Finding interests to solve a problem is interest-based negotiation. So negotiation strategies are four mainly. One, when you have a low degree of assertiveness and low degree of cooperation, the strategy here is called avoiding. Someone is losing, someone is also losing. The second one in the matrix is when you have high degree of assertiveness but low degree of cooperation. The strategy is called dominating or competing, and you have a win-lose situation. Quadrant 3 is when you have a low degree of assertiveness but high degree of cooperation. The strategy is called accommodating or yielding, and you lose, they will win. And the fourth quadrant is, which is the last strategy, which is the best, by the way, and this is when you have high level of assertiveness and high level of cooperation. Both are high. It is called problem solving or collaboration. It's a win-win strategy. Now, imagine the four quadrants we talked about, and imagine a central sweet spot of you being flexible. When you are drawn to the middle of the four quadrants matrix that we discussed, you are compromising. Compromising is not bad as a strategy. You have to be flexible in the negotiation. So these are the four strategies. Some of the key tactics, however, are you can act as the good guy, bad guy type of tactic, where one person is helpful while another is difficult to deal with. You have the deadline tactic. We have a flight leaving at 5 p.m. today, and we must finish the negotiation before that time. You have the limited authority tactic. I can't agree to shorten the schedule by 6 months. My authorization is limited to only 3 months. You have the missing man tactic. Only my boss can agree to that request, and he isn't here. You have the fair and reasonable tactic, like let's be fair and reasonable, accept this offer as it is. Delay tactic. Let us revisit this issue the next time we meet. Extreme demands tactic. You will have to pay for all the risks for this work. It is not our responsibility to plan for risks. Withdrawal tactic. This can be either an emotional or a physical actual withdrawal, and it can show lessening of interest in the negotiation process. You have also the fait accompli from the French word, a done deal. These are our terms and conditions. and they must be in all our contracts, so you have to take them. So depends on the strategy that you are going to adopt, depends on the, how you position yourself to go into the negotiation room, and what tactics, and who are your partners, and who is the team, and how much you prepared for the negotiation process is all, contributing to a successful negotiation from your side. We are now going to take a short 2 minutes break for the commercials, and when we return, we will look at the 4 phases now of negotiation, from planning to closing, and the skills you need to become a better negotiator. If you are looking for one-on-one help to grow your business, check out our business directory of vetted professionals in all 4 of our market segments. Just go in your browser to ibgr.network, hit that home tab, that us tab, and then choose your market segment. Then select a host. You have been listening to Buying Customers. I am your business and executive coach, Gabi Awad, and today we are talking about beyond win-win in negotiation. We will be back after a short break, like 2.5 minutes. We are back, and you are listening to IBGR Network. I am your host, business and executive coach, Khaled. In this episode of our Buying Customers Journey, we are talking about beyond win-win in negotiation. Go to our website at ibgr.network and download the show notes. Before the break, we talked about the different types of negotiation, some strategies and some tactics that you can equip yourself with. Now, let's look at the 4 phases that every sound negotiation should walk through. The 4 phases of a negotiation are easy: preparation, exchanging information, bargaining, and closing. So bargaining is in the core of the process. But before the process begins, both parties need to prepare for the negotiation. This involves establishing their bargaining position by defining their BATNA, their WATNA, ZOPA, WAP. We're going to talk about those acronyms later during the show. But for now, just know that these are the best alternatives to a negotiation agreement, the worst alternative to a negotiation agreement, the zone of possible agreement, and the walkaway price. Preparation also involves gathering information about the issues to be addressed in the negotiation meeting. After the negotiation, both parties should work to restore the relationship that may have been, frayed by the negotiation process itself. It is essential to pay attention to all the phases of negotiation. Without the first phase, the exchange of information and the establishment of bargaining positions, the second phase cannot happen in any meaningful sense because no one knows where they stand. It sets a scene for demands to be manageable, and those are reasonable demands. Negotiations are, after all, about the art of the possible. Without bargaining or the bargaining phase in the process, anything that has been decided during the information gathering phase cannot be formalized on paper and will not take place in implementation, leading to the necessity for further negotiations or even an absolute breakdown in the relationship. Now, what skills do one need to become a better negotiator? Well, the whole basket of skills, actually. These might include effective speaking, effective listening, a sense of humor, a positive attitude, respect, self-confidence, all the emotional intelligence aspects, problem solving and creativity, persistence, assertiveness, patience, and teamwork. Without the above skills or factors, negotiations will be difficult, if not impossible. The necessity for negotiation arises because neither parties, will be able to get everything that they want. Knowing that there must be concessions along the way, each party in the negotiation is required to adopt an attitude of understanding that they must get the best deal possible in a way which is acceptable to both parties. The importance of effective speaking and effective listening and active listening is clear. It is necessary to establish what you are looking for and what you are prepared to accept, while understanding what the other party will be happy with also plays a key factor in the communication skills you need to have. A sense of humor and a positive attitude are also essential because they allow for a sense of give and take. Negotiations can become tense most of the time, and having the ability to see the other side point of view while being positive with regard to what you can achieve will be essential. Of course, you will want as much as you can, but the other side also needs to achieve what they can too. Seriously, uneven negotiations will simply lead to further problems along the line. An atmosphere of respect is essential here. If you do not make concessions while demanding them from your counterpart, a negotiation will end in dissatisfaction. If it's a deal you are looking for, if you are negotiating that big contract, keep that in mind in your next sales meeting. It is also necessary to have the confidence to not settle for less than you feel is fair. Good negotiators understand the importance of balance. Yes, you will have to make concessions, but the point of making concessions is to secure what you can get. So you need to pay attention to your bottom line and ensure you are not beaten down to a minimum. Later on, we will discuss those BATNA, WATNA, and the walkaway price. Knowing what is realistic and ensuring that you can get the best deal relies on you being ready to insist upon something that the other side may not be willing to give initially. Emotional intelligence, persistence, patience, and creativity as skills can all play a part here. Taking stock of these skills and assessing your strengths and weaknesses in each and every one, and developing an action plan to improve your strength in these skills, as well as improving your weaknesses, is the most important thing you can do to develop your negotiation skills. So, to summarize this segment, we've seen that you have 4 phases in the process. Preparation phase, and this is very important: scoping, asking questions, doing your research, understanding your competition, understanding their competition in sales, doing your marketing analysis, sitting with your team to brainstorm what's your minimum price, what's your maximum price that you are asking for, discussing the values that you can bring to the table, discussing your uniqueness to be able to transmit that uniqueness to your counterpart if you are in the negotiation of a deal with your client. All of these play a big role in you being prepared for the negotiation. And then when you move to the first meeting of sales or negotiation, let's call it, it's about the questions that you ask. Questions that you will ask in gathering information, which is phase 2 of the process, will get doors open for you. The solutions that you do, and the solutions that you come up with during the presentation itself is excellent, because that will give you respect as a person who is trying to find solutions and not only bargain on positions. And then you move to what we call the bargaining stage, and this is more about numbers. And when you finish this bargaining stage, then you move towards closing the deal or closing the negotiation. Great. Now, what are the skills, again, that you need to equip yourself with? All skills. Question asking, the skills of asking powerful questions, the skills of digging deeper to gather information, the skills of you being their trusted advisor to generate solutions. And then when you position yourself as a person of value, adding value to your client, the whole negotiation will not become a bargaining. Instead, it will become a problem solving with your value shown on the table. And when you have shown your value, you might ask for the price that fits your maximum price that you are asking for. Keep this in mind when you have a next sales meeting or a next negotiating meeting with your counterpart. Now we are going to take a short 2 minutes break, and when we return, we will continue with the strategies to improve your negotiation skills. So what do you need to know to be prepared for gathering information and bargaining? Let's get social on the new IBGR app. You can chat with our mentoring groups in the chat tab or interact in the app social group. You have been listening to Buying Customers on IBGR Network. I am Gabi Awad, and we'll be back after a short break. We are back, and in this episode of Buying Customers on IBGR Network, we are discussing your negotiation skills and how to think beyond win-win. Go to our website at IBGR Network and download the show notes. For the break, we discussed the skills needed to make an impact in your negotiation, and we looked at the 4 phases of negotiation. See, the key to personal preparation is to approach the negotiation with self-confidence and positive attitude. Now, let's talk a bit about some principles that you need to know here. In most negotiations, the parties are influenced by their assumptions about what they think are the alternatives to a negotiated agreement. Often, the parties have an unrealistic idea of what these alternatives are to begin with, and they are unwilling to make concessions because they think they can do just as well without negotiating. If you do not have a clear idea of your WATNA, or your worst alternative to a negotiated agreement, and your BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement, you will negotiate poorly based on false beliefs about what you can expect without an agreement. Often, the parties in a negotiation need to decide how likely a particular outcome will be. If your WATNA is something that would be difficult for you to accept, but the likelihood of it happening is small, you might not feel compelled to give up much in the negotiation process. Realistic expectations are essential in this situation. If you could have the ideal situation, the blue sky scenario, negotiations would not be necessary in the first place. In order to focus on the negotiations with a sense of purpose, your WATNA is important. What is often referred to as the worst case scenario. This is something that any sensible person will think about before embarking on any initiative or a negotiation meeting. What if it goes wrong? How will we deal with that? How you feel about your WATNA will decide how flexible you need to be, and therefore will be in the negotiation. The BATNA, or the best case scenario, is almost more important than your WATNA. If you look at your situation in the absence of a negotiated agreement and find it almost unthinkable, you will be pressed to enter negotiations in the hope of getting a satisfactory agreement. The word satisfactory is important here. Is the WATNA better than satisfactory? Is the BATNA worse? Generally, people only enter into negotiations because they feel they have to. They arrive at this conclusion based on analysis of their WATNA and BATNA. The zone of possible agreement, or ZOPA, is the range in which an agreement is satisfactory to both parties involved in the negotiation. It is the range between each party's reservation values and the price, and it is the overlap area that each party is willing to pay in the negotiation. So the reservation value is the least favorable point at which one will accept a negotiated agreement. For example, for a seller, this means the minimum amount they would be prepared to accept, while for a buyer, it would mean the maximum that they would be ready or prepared to pay. Unlike BATNA, the reservation value is always expressed as a number. It can be the same number that you can get without the negotiation, but it can also mean a different one. For example, imagine you are selling your car. Your relative comes and tells you that he would buy it from you at $10,000 if you are not able to sell it elsewhere. But if you were okay to selling it for $10,000, you might want other buyers to pay at least $11,000. In this case, the BATNA so far is selling it to your relative for $10,000, but the reservation value that you are looking for is $11,000. Also, it is important that you keep your walkaway price to yourself, especially if it is significantly less than your initial offer. If the other party knows that you will be willing to take a loss or less, than you are offering, then you will be negotiating from a position of weakness. If the other party knows or has an idea of your walkaway price, then it stops being a walkaway price and simply becomes your price. Establishing a WAP in your mind and ensuring that those negotiators on your side of the bargain, and only they know it, allows you to take your strongest possible bargaining position. The other party will try to argue you down from your proposed price, so you'll need to remain firm. The opposing party will also have to consider what is acceptable to them, rather than push too hard and lose out on a deal which would be beneficial to themselves also. They'll have their own areas where they are willing to make concessions. However, if they know that you have set a walkaway price that would save them money, they will simply hold firm at that price. They have no incentive to make concessions to you if this is the case. In many ways, negotiation is about keeping as much to yourself as you possibly can until you can no longer maintain that position. Once you have set your walkaway price, it is essential to keep to it. A walkaway price becomes absolutely meaningless if you are not prepared to walk away, should it not be met. You should give the impression to your opponent in the negotiation that you could walk away at any time. Remember the withdrawal tactic we discussed earlier? They will, after all, not be prepared to stop once they get a price which is satisfactory to them. They will look to squeeze a bit more value out of the deal for themselves and testing you to see what you will be able to give. A warning here against setting your walkaway price unrealistically low, to that matter, is that the other party will not take you seriously if you are a softie in the negotiations. They will seek to test you at every turn. In the negotiation for the used car example that we discussed earlier, both parties should feel good about the outcome. Even though the parties might have hoped for a better deal, both got a better price than their walkaway price. This negotiation demonstrates the importance of keeping your walkaway price to yourself if you want to negotiate the best deal. Your range in this situation falls between the price that you would ideally or realistically get and your walkaway price that you have set. In an ideal world, you could demand $1 million and expect to get it. In a realistic world, however, you need to be realistic in negotiations. You should arrive at your ideal realistic price by seeing what the accepted market value for what you are offering is. By adjusting for your specific negotiating positions, whether you are approaching it from a position of need or no need, you have a full pipeline of prospects and suspects, and you have set your walkaway price higher. So you can find your best realistic price when you have a filled pipeline of leads and prospects and deals. Then think about a price at which it would no longer be worthwhile to strike that deal. Your co-negotiator will have done the same, and what he or she hope to pay and what you hope to get are just that. Hopefully, the zone of possible agreement is the area in which the final price will sit, and within that ZOPA or zone of possible agreement, you will ideally end up with a price closer to their walkaway price than yours, if you are the seller. If you hint at where your WAP is, the other party will be less likely to come to an agreement that is substantially better than that figure. Here is my simple approach to follow. 1, collect all the information you can. Information is power in the negotiation process. 2, make your preliminary assumptions. Try to visualize your BATNA, your ZOPA, your WAP, visualizing and testing your assumptions in terms of, the BATNA, the reservation values, the zone of possible agreement is a powerful method to improve your performance in every negotiation. Do it with your team. Step 3 would be test and adjust your assumptions during the negotiation rounds. Okay, so We are now going to take a short 2 minutes break, and when we return, we will continue with our topic for today, Beyond Win-Win. We will do a recap and we will leave you with an action plan. Don't forget that you can always connect and interact with us on social media or by using the IBGR application for Android and iOS, which is ready and available for download. Just search IBGR on Android Play or Apple Store and download, and you can listen to the current programming, on-demand podcasts, read the show notes, stay current on IBGR news, and connect with us on air. You have been listening to Buying Customers, and on IBGR Network, I am your host, Business and Executive Coach Gabi Awad, and we will be back after a short 2 minutes break. We are back, and you are listening to IBGR Network. I am your host, Business and Executive Coach Gabi Awad. In this episode of Buying Customers, we are talking about beyond win-win in negotiation and how to improve those negotiation skills so that you achieve more and drive more sales. Go to our website at IBGR Network and download the show notes to follow with an action plan that you can implement tomorrow in your business. Before the break, we talked about your WATNA, your BATNA, your WAP, your ZOPA, and we discussed each one and how to arrive to each one. And before that, we also discussed the skills needed to make an impact in negotiation, and we looked at the 4 phases of negotiation: preparation, information, gathering, bargaining, and closing. Let's get back to the first phase in the negotiation, information. This phase also involves an exchange of information. It's both ways when you exchange information, not one way. It's a double-sided road. And both sides of the negotiation table should state their positions on the issues being addressed in a non-confrontational way. The tricky part of this phase is deciding what to reveal and what to hold back. The poker face metaphor for negotiating is a very good one because it describes exactly the way that negotiating parties will want to allow each other to think. The information you share with your negotiating counterpart will allow them to read a certain amount about your position. You cannot negotiate blindly after all. However, too much information given away can really come back to bite you. Before you actually get down to information exchange, it's a good idea to engage in a little small talk with your counterpart in the negotiation. This will help them set a positive tone. You might find that you have some things in common, such as hobbies or favorite teams, soccer teams, what have you. If you rush right into the negotiation without some initial humor, the other party may feel that you are being pushy and aggressive in the negotiation. For some people, this is a desirable negotiating style. However, it is advisable to have as many strings as possible to your bow and when it comes to negotiation. Equip yourself with these tools. Break the ice, build the rapport, establish a, we are friend kind of a position. After all, being human and easy to relate to is far less likely to persuade the other party that you are someone who needs to be kept in check and may work to your advantage. Obviously, when it comes to introductions and preliminaries, it is an idea not to get too informal. Apart from anything else, this will feel quite artificial when all parties are fully aware that there are issues to be debated here. How many negotiations you have to, have found that they ended even at early stages because one participant forgot the name of the other person sitting in front of them as a counterpart, or just made accidentally an offensive remark due to ignorance of a critical detail or their business. Projecting an image of relaxed friendliness with an element of restraint is your best way to introduce yourself. By no means should you give the impression that you are here to bleed your counterpart dry. This will put them on the defensive and entrench their position to your disadvantage. But it does help to project self-confidence. But don't mix both. If you seem in a hurry to get negotiations completed and an agreement sealed, the impression will be that you want to escape from the whole process with a minimum of losses. When exchanging information, these are the 5 things that you should never say in negotiation. Maybe we could meet in the middle. See, the art of negotiation relies on confident language. Thinking out loud can mean you come across an undecided and unclear in your mind, and this will undoubtedly weaken your negotiation position. If you are not fully prepared before the negotiation takes place, you can easily end up hedging your bets and starting to compromise from the onset. Preparation and confidence go hand in hand. You will take a much stronger stance if you know your win zone. The other thing that you shouldn't be saying in negotiation is, I don't agree. If you argue with logic, you are more likely than not to end up in deadlock. Saying you don't agree will get you nowhere. So don't say it. You have to recognize that both of you have your own positions, but at the same time understand that arguing is not negotiation. So arguing is not negotiation. Take a step back and count to 10 and remember the saying, during a negotiation, it would be wise not to take anything personally. If you leave the personalities out of it, you will be able to see the opportunities more objectively. So it's not personal. The third thing you should not say, is getting back to the selling mode. One of the most common mistakes I notice during a negotiation is when people revert to selling mode. Overselling can weaken your negotiating position. Always make sure you have finalized the selling process before you open the negotiations. The fourth thing you should not say is, that's my final offer. Whatever you do, try not to back yourself or others into a corner. Only say, and that's my final offer, if you truly mean it, and you are prepared to follow through it. Although it's often very tempting to respond with this remark, if either party has their back against the wall, it's unlikely you will arrive at a mutually satisfying conclusion. So don't do it. Don't say also, I'll ask my boss. The other absolute negotiation no-no here is saying, I'll talk to my boss. This is not only undermining you and your credibility, it also suggests you're not joined up and you're not aligned as a team, which can allow the other side to force some cracks in your arguments. So that sums up my list of the top 5 things you should never say when negotiating. What will be on your list of negotiating no-nos? Please share. Now let's move to the action plan, because actions speak louder than words. Step 1, plan and prepare. Never wish life were easier. Wish that you were better, said Jim Rohn. The important thing is to recognize your skills and be prepared to respond if they are used against you in a negotiation. As long as you recognize the skills when they are used, you can actually turn them to your advantage in a pressurized negotiation setting. Identify with your team your ZOPA, BATNA, WAP, and consider the all scenarios, if then else scenarios, and come up with solutions on paper even before you go to the meeting. Step 2 happens during the negotiation, information exchange. Try to create a mutual gain solution here. So go with a shift in your mindset. This requires some activities not usually associated with the negotiations. For example, brainstorming to expand the pie by coming up with a range of options, or identifying shared values to help create options that will meet the interest of both parties. Changing the scope of the negotiation, making it larger or smaller or cross-sold. Identify the issues that can be set aside for future negotiations. Solve the quick wins first. Step 3 of the action plan happens also during bargaining. So ask what you want, ask what they want, and then ask what you both combined want. This will help reaching mutual gain. A useful exercise here is to break down your statements into wants and needs. This is particularly valuable if your statements are vague. Let's take the statement, I want changes to the schedule, for example, as something that is holding the negotiation process. This will give you some bargaining room during the negotiation process and will help ensure that you get what you need out of the solution. In this example, you may be willing to give up a more regular schedule if more notice for schedule changes is provided by your counterpart. When you both have the same goal set, a logistical conflict rather than an emotional one, you can see that there is good starting ground for a solution. Step 4 of the action plan would be to build an agreement and then go to formalizing the agreement and then closing the negotiation. This is the ability to translate generalities that you agreed upon in the negotiation meeting into specifics. And this is where the bargaining is over. Now, it's your role to create an agreement based on a fair and accurate interpretation of the consensus that both parties have reached. A good negotiations team will have at least one details guy or gal who is able to get the print in place after the negotiators have put the outline in front of them. I mean, we are all familiar with what can happen when the terms of an agreement are not clearly spelled out and written in a documented, detailed agreement. That concludes our show for today and actually for the whole season 4. You have been listening to Buying Customers, and today we talked about beyond win-win in negotiation. Be safe, wear a mask, be responsible. I am Gary Awad. Thank you for listening.